Managing backups can be a large undertaking for administrators to ensure they're maintaining a 3-2-1 backup strategy. But what if you could offload that backup management to a service instead? NetApp's Backup and Recovery service brings a cloud-native approach to backup management while delivering cost-efficient backups, massive scale, and pay-as-you-grow licensing. This week, Ebin Kadavy and Manohar Kulkarni join me to tell us all about it.
Welcome to the Tech ONTAP Podcast.
I love NetApp. Oh, yeah.
I love NetApp because it's so fun.
I'm here in the basement of my house, and with me today I have a couple of special guests to talk to us all about NetApp Backup and Recovery services. So with us, we have Manohar Kulkarni. So Manohar, what do you do here at NetApp, and how do we reach you?
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having us in your show. I'm Manohar Kulkarni. I'm a senior technical marketing engineer, part of a data service product team, and I predominantly work on creating solutions and content for databases and virtualization in NetApp Backup and Recovery space. You can reach out to me on the NetApp email ID, manohar.kulkarni@netapp.com. And I'm also available on LinkedIn. So if you do a search, Manohar Kulkarni, and more refined search with NetApp, you will always find me on the top of the list.
Also with us today, we have Ebin Kadavy. So Ebin, what do you do here at NetApp, and how do we reach you?
Hey, Justin, thank you for including us in the series. I'm Ebin Kadavy, product manager for NetApp Backup and Recovery service, as well as Snap Center. So I focus particularly on enterprise databases and virtualization. Everyone can reach me at ebin@netapp.com for any queries, any questions around the product or services.
All right. So like I said, today we're covering NetApp Backup and Recovery service, and that's not what it's always been called. It's been called something else in the past. Ebin, what was NetApp Backup and Recovery service before, and what has it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. In the past, we had numerous names. NetApp Backup and Recovery service is part of NetApp Console. So NetApp Console is a control plane to host multiple protection services that includes backup and recovery, disaster recovery, and ransomware resiliency. So there are more services. I just want to focus these three in today's discussion. In the past, the console was named Blue XP. In the past, it was called Cloud Manager. The service has also changed. In the past, we called it as Cloud Backup Service. Then eventually it was called Blue XP Backup and Recovery. And now we call it NetApp Backup and Recovery.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It tells you exactly what it does, and you're not guessing what Blue XP is anymore, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That said, what exactly does NetApp Backup and Recovery services do? Tell me a little bit about the value prop and the pitch for what it is and why people would want it.
So NetApp Backup and Recovery, it's completely a managed service offering from NetApp. I think the good part of our service is that it provides you a secure 3-2-1 backup. Today, 3-2-1 backup is the industry standard for backup, where you have 3 copies with 2 copies on different media and 1 copy being at offsite. So in the past, we had Snap Center and other Snap products where we used to support only backups between your ONTAP primary and ONTAP secondary, or it could be ONTAP primary to CVO, or it could be a CVO to CVO. But it never supported long-term retention, where if a customer wanted to retain backups for their compliance needs, like 7 years, 10 years, 15 years of backup, I think that story was not there. Now with NetApp Backup and Recovery, customers can protect their database, VMs, containers, and the NAS for a long-term retention, following this 3-2-1 principle. So that's one of the coolest part. The second thing is, being a managed service, unlike traditional softwares, customer doesn't have to manage on their own. That means upgrading whenever the new versions are available. So these things are not needed because you don't have to manage the backup infrastructure. So NetApp is managing the backup infrastructure for the customers. I think that's one of the coolest things, because traditionally the admins have to take the risk. They have to take a backup before they perform something. And if something screws up, they need to roll back. So now nothing is needed. You are running always at the latest and the greatest when you run on the managed service offering.
When you talk about upgrading, when it's done in a cloud resident nature, Is there any sort of disruption that happens when you upgrade or when we upgrade because we're managing it? So if I'm taking a backup as a customer, does it start an upgrade while I'm taking backups or does it wait for opportunistic moments? How does that process all play out?
Yeah, that's one of the great points with NetApp Backup and Recovery. Since NetApp is managing the backup infrastructure for the customer, all the microservices would be running within the customer environment. And whenever there is an upgrade process happen, it is seamlessly managed, wherein any microservices or the image or container that is running within the NetApp agent is replaced with a different container that we provide you the upgrade. And that is done seamlessly. Customer doesn't have to run a separate upgrade process or have to plan the upgrade lifecycle. Whenever there is a new patch that gets released, we take care on the behalf of the customer.
Okay. That's good. So then they don't have to worry about disruptions because someone else is managing their stuff. That's, I guess, one of the main things that people would be worried about. Another that might be worried about is the security aspect. So how are you presenting customers with this idea that their backup software is secure in the cloud?
So the architecture is pretty interesting. Unlike other cloud services where an external entity may have an inbound connectivity to the customer objects, right? For example, the console comes with a connector, or we call it as agent. So it may need inbound connectivity to the agent, and then it has to have a connectivity to all our services, all the storage, databases, and VMs. But that's not the case with the NetApp console. I think the console is unique in that way. It doesn't require an inbound connectivity from the SaaS to the customer's network. It is always outbound. So the connector always interfaces between the customer's infrastructure versus the SaaS. So it has outbound communication, and it always does some kind of a long polling from the SaaS, from the console, and then it takes the action into the customer's infrastructure. For example, if a customer tries to do something with the backup and it is stored in the message queue, and what happens is the agent, which always does the long polling, it sees the matching messages and forwards the actions to the respective components like plugins of NetApp Backup and Recovery. So it's pretty secure in that way. And the second thing is we follow all the industry standard to ensure that data is always encrypted at rest and in flight. So that's basic standard things that every SaaS products should follow, which we are following it all together. And the third thing is we have different layers of communication, but indirectly there is a lot of things that has to cross through to even come down to the customer's environment. And the customer's data is never moving out from their data center or from their VPC or VNet to the cloud. Always the customer's data is preserved in their own storage. So I think that's the beauty of snapshots, right? Unlike any other backup software, they may pull the data from the customer's host or from the storage, and then they move it to another destination. In the case of NetApp, we always rely on snapshots. So your customer's data is always on the snapshot, and the snapshot is just simply replicated between the different storage systems, secondary and tertiary. So that way, the customer data is never moving out from their environment to the cloud.
And does NetApp Backup and Recovery Service leverage other security features, say autonomous ransomware protection at all, or is that kind of baked into the ONTAP infrastructure?
We have NetApp Ransomware Resilience as separate. It's part of the same suite, which offers ransomware protection for the customers. So it depends on autonomous ransomware protection provided by ONTAP. In addition to that, it can do much more stuff. But yes, NetApp Backup is not involving in it because it focuses only on creating snapshots, and it allows you to lock your snapshots using snap lock. So that's the minimum thing that we offer in backup and recovery, while ransomware resilience can offer much more in terms of scanning the real-time data and providing insights or providing ransomware alerts from that service.
So I guess ransomware resilience would be a separate service you'd purchase in addition to this.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So Manohar, when customers are looking at this solution and they start to realize that they can't use it without being connected to the cloud, and I'm talking specifically about customers that are interested in dark site, how do you handle that? Is there a way to leverage NetApp Backup and Recovery Service without having to interact with external networks and clouds?
So the way the architecture is built, on the cloud platform, we only collect the metadata information, which is to orchestrate the backup, scheduling of backup. It is all managed from the NetApp agent, which runs within the customer VPC. It could be either on-prem or in the cloud. So all the backup process job, they are all executed from NetApp agent. The requirement is to have the NetApp console agent connecting to our SaaS platform, because we are able to efficiently manage the backup infrastructure for the customer. Whenever there is an upgrade, we can push for the upgrade within the NetApp agent. And if immediately any support is required for a particular feature within the database product or virtualization product, we can push it and customer can get that support in a few releases instead of waiting for months to get it upgraded and then start protecting a certain resources. So that's something in the roadmap if the customer is looking for a complete on-prem solution. But as of now, it is a requirement for NetApp console agent to be available on-prem, which should be connecting to our SaaS platform. So that's the current requirement.
Okay. Makes sense. So when you're talking about backups and recovery, there's also some other pieces that you might want to have insights into, such as capacity you're using or storage efficiencies or performance. Do you provide that sort of data sets for these backup and recovery solutions, or is that something that's offered as an external as a service offering?
So as far as the capacity is concerned, we have a dashboard wherein we give the detail like how many resources are being protected and what is the protected capacity. So those information are available in the dashboard across all our workloads that we currently support, such as in the virtualization for VMware, Hyper-V, KVM. Similarly, for the database, we have for SQL Server, Oracle, and volumes.
With respect to the backup thing, I think it's more important to say in terms of time and cost. So when it comes to time, I would say snapshots are super efficient in terms of a customer getting a quick application of VM consistent snapshot. I think that's the cool part, which none of the other streaming solutions can offer. In addition to that, it's also being space efficient. So the snapshots, when we are replicating to a different storage or to an object store, the efficiency in the primary is getting reflected in secondary as well as in the object store. So they get the same storage efficiency being replicated across the board. So that's one of the cool part. The third thing is, since we support features like flex clones and snap restores, we are not really hydrating the entire data. Especially with flex clones, customer can create multiple copies of their production for their dev test, QA, analytics, and even for AI use cases as well. And it's going to be near 100% efficient, and it's very instantaneous, right? And in addition to that, if he's performing a restore from an object store or from a secondary storage, we are not really pulling the entire data from that storage to do a restore. We know what is changed, and we are just doing the restore for that delta. Not the entire data is being pulled out from the storage. All this means we offer the best RPO, RTO, in addition to the space efficiency that we guarantee as part of using our snapshot technology.
Yeah, and I get that. What I was asking more of is, do we show our work, right? Do we show the dashboard saying you've saved this much capacity with efficiencies, or your backup took this long, or it did this many megs per second or gigs per second? Do we show any of that sort of information in the dashboard, or is that something that's just not been asked for on the roadmap at all?
Yeah, a few of the things are there in the roadmap. Otherwise, we are showing the space efficiency. So we are doing a space efficiency chart. We have attractive stuff that shows how much you are efficiently saving by running on snapshots, versus, as well as if you're doing with clones, how much you are efficiently saving. So we have a separate widget that shows the space efficiency part. Well, how much percentage of space efficiency and few other things which are coming up in the roadmap. But yes, so we have something that is very valuable for customers that we do today.
Absolutely. So let's talk about scale. How much can we actually back up with this? How many clients can agents run? What sort of scale are we looking at with NetApp and Backup Recovery Service with each instance?
Currently, we have tested a scenario where you can back up more than 20,000 VMs from a single agent that we have right now. Our engineers are testing in the background with more than 40 or 50,000 databases running across these 20,000 VMs. So it can scale not only vertically, but there is a roadmap plan where it can also scale horizontally. When the need comes, if the customer increases their infrastructure to go beyond 30, 40,000 VMs, they can efficiently scale their agent, because agent is the one through which all the activities are managed, for backup to restore to clone operation. So everything is managed from the NetApp console agent. So we have a capability where it can scale up vertically, and in the future roadmap, we also plan to do it horizontally.
Adding to Manohar's point, we have sizing guidelines for agent. What's the small configuration look like? What's the RAM, CPU, and what kind of scale you can expect with that configuration? So you can pretty well refer that scale guidelines and make sure how many agents you want to deploy based on your infrastructure. I think that is very clear from these documents.
So with that kind of scale, how are we licensing this? Is this licensed per seat? Is it licensed per backup? Is it licensed per capacity?
So the NetApp console platform is not being charged on the customer, because the agent is the only component that runs inside the customer environment. And agent is nothing other than the VM, right? So customer has to provide that infrastructure to host the VM. The licensing is only applicable for the services. For example, if he is hosting NetApp Backup and Recovery service, so we charge on the front-end capacity that is getting protected. It's not on the primary snapshots, I would say, only when you protect the snapshots to a secondary destination, and that's where we enforce the licensing. That is, if you have ONTAP primary, secondary, and object store, so when you move the first needle, right, after you take the snapshot, you replicate it to a secondary. It could be even object store or secondary ONTAP. I think that's where we expect that customers should have the license for those data that is getting protected. And it depends on the plugins. Since we support a lot of workloads, we have support for NAS, we have support for VMware, Hyper-V, KVM, which are like VMware alternatives. And in addition to that, we have support for Kate, Oracle, MS SQL. So these are the workloads that we support. So depending on the workloads, we have a mechanism how we charge it. For example, if you are using a database like SQL or Oracle, and if you want to see how the pricing works, it's pretty simple. It's just the front-end use capacity of that database, not the volume. For example, if you have a database DB1, and if the size is, say, 50 gig, on a volume of 1 terabyte, we charge 50 gig. You're not charging the entire 1 terabyte volume, because you're not backing up the entire 1 terabyte volume. You're just trying to back up only that database, which is 50 gig. So we have a similar stuff for VMs and other cases. And compared to the TCO side of the world, if you see, we are much more efficient because of this, because we are not charging, unlike other vendors, where they charge on the very first backup. When a customer protects their critical data to a secondary storage, that's where we start charging them.
And do you also charge on restores, or is that included in the backup?
The restores and flex clones, unlimited. No doubt about it. It's free.
And what's good about the flex clone is you're not actually incurring capacity costs there, right? Until you start to change it.
No, it is only based on the resource that we protected. So even if they take n number of clones, or even someone is trying to protect a clone, it is not charged. The customer won't be charged in that situation.
So you mentioned a lot of application-based backup type of things, and that makes a lot of sense. But I guess the question for me, is it just when those applications are hosted on NAS, or is it also block?
We support both NAS and SAN. Again, it is depending on the workload. So like I said, for databases and VMs, when I say VMs, it includes VMware. So SQL, Oracle, VMware, we are supporting NAS and SAN. And with respect to OpenShift, Kubernetes, and the volume, which is pretty much NAS focused. So these are all NAS focused. We are planning to add more workloads in the coming future. So right now we have covered pretty much the top workloads used by most of the customers. And so to your questions, particularly SAN is supported for both databases and VMware as of now. But yes, we will support SAN for Hyper-V, KVM in the coming roadmap.
So when we're talking about block versus NAS, there's often this idea of file system consistency where the OS communicates with it to quiesce whatever in-flight operations are happening. So basically crash consistent versus application consistent. And does NetApp Backup and Recovery Service interact with those OSs and applications to ensure that consistency, or is it just basically all or nothing?
Yes, it does, especially when it comes to database. It is very critical to ensure when we take an app consistent backup. Many times for performance reasons and manageability reasons, since the database size have grown so large that the database files are spread across multiple LUNs. And when we take a backup, we ensure it is a consistent snapshot. And the way we do it, if I take SQL Server as an example, Microsoft SQL Server provides an API wherein first requires the database, wherein the IOs are stalled for a few seconds, and in the background, they quickly cut a snapshot across all the volume. And once that is done, we release the IO and the transaction continues as it is. There won't be any disruption as such. Similarly, when it comes to Oracle, there is a slight change the way it is managed. Sometimes we do use consistency group capability, the CG commands from the ONTAP to take an consistent snapshot across multiple volumes. So that intelligence is all built into NetApp Backup and Recovery when it comes to taking an app consistent backup.
Yeah, the same applies even for VM consistency. The VM consistent snapshots would help them to do that. And in fact, if you have any applications on top of VM, and if a customer enables VMware consistent snapshots, and of course, he's getting a completely consistent snapshot that includes both VM as well as the application running inside the VM.
Makes sense. As far as interoperability with NetApp products goes, I'm going to go through a list of products, and you just tell me yes or no if NetApp Backup and Recovery Service works with it. And if there's like a caveat or something, feel free to mention that. But we'll start with Unified ONTAP, just regular ONTAP. I'm guessing that's a yes all the way, right?
Yeah.
All right. Storage Grid.
Yeah, maybe I can quickly justify on why Storage Grid. Storage Grid would be used as a target for backup. If the customer want to protect snapshots from their ONTAP primary or even from secondary to a tertiary for long-term retention, they can use Storage Grid as a medium to protect.
All right. E-Series.
No.
And that, I'm guessing not even as a source, right? You can't even back that up, or as a destination, like a BGFS destination?
Yes, we haven't supported E-Series as a source or as a destination yet.
Okay. ASA.
So we have ASA R1 and R2. ASA R1 as a source is possible because it's more or less the same as AFF. But ASA R2 in NetApp Backup and Recovery is yet to be supported.
Okay.
I don't want to say R2, it's the new ASA model.
Yeah, the disaggregated ASA, basically.
Yeah.
So it's the disaggregated ONTAP version of that, which brings us to AFX, of course. So disaggregated ONTAP AFX, what about that one?
Yep, that's right.
That's just NAS. We always tout it over there as it's just ONTAP. So it's really just ONTAP, just a different way of consuming it. All right, so let's get into like maybe non-NetApp targets. Do you support any of the non-NetApp targets?
We have supported in terms of object stores, not for the source as a target. As a target, you can copy backups to AWS S3, Azure Blob, and GCP.
So the requirement has to be S3.
Yeah, it has to be S3 clients.
Okay.
And in addition to these, the familiar cloud and NetApp-based object stores that include Storage Grid and ONTAP S3, we have done a preview support for limited workloads for MinIO and Wasabi. So if they want to protect to any other S3 clients, we have given a limited preview support right now. And if customers are interested, let us know so we can also extend support for other S3 clients.
And what if you want to use a NAS protocol to dump a third or tertiary backup to? Is that supported with NetApp Backup and Recovery Service, or is that something you have to do on your own?
Right now, we don't have. I think we got some requests. We will assess on this and we'll get back.
Yep. And this is more about what you do and do support, not so much as trying to show limitations of the product. There's certainly a lot there already. And I know that you're working on a lot of new stuff. What about Metro Cluster?
Yes. So we support Metro Cluster as well as SMAS, ActiveSync. So all the synchronous solutions are being supported right now.
And business continuity, does that also interact with that?
Yep, that's right.
You mean SnapMirror ActiveSync? So that is supported. We have qualified it, wherein whenever customer flips their database from one side to the another side, NetApp Backup and Recovery is aware of which one is a primary, and then it takes a backup from the new primary role in that SMAS topology.
Okay, excellent. So we covered what sort of NetApp portfolio products are supported or not supported, and if you support third party. Now, what if I want to start using it? What's the easiest way to go about that?
So first step is to getting the NetApp console agent deployed within the environment. I know many of the customer already have it, but after that, the steps are easy. They don't have to install any appliance after that. They just have to go to NetApp Backup and Recovery service under NetApp Protection. And over there, they just have to choose the workload which they want to protect. And once they select it, they just need to activate a trial license. We offer 30 days trial license for most of the workload. They can start evaluating it. And with this evaluation, there is no restriction. It has an unlimited capacity. So even if they have terabytes of data that they want to protect and try it out, how efficiently we can back up, they can start using it immediately. So it is just a matter of enable it and start using it.
What happens after that 30 days?
Yeah, so after the 30 days, I think it's pretty simple. They have to request license. I would say we should not do it towards the 30-day period. Now, if they want to extend the testing, they can request for an evaluation license beyond 30 days, and we are ready to help you out. It's not like a hard limit from our side. And now, how can you license? If you ask me in that way, we offer multiple ways. One is they can get from the marketplace in AWS, Azure, and Google. We offer private offers. Customer can get private offers like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year offers, and apart from the pay goes. And if they are not having a marketplace integration, they want to buy separately from NetApp, whereas we offer BYOL. So bring your own license. So you can again quote it for 1 to 3 years. So as you buy for more years, you get a very great discounts, and that helps you to save more when you lock it for a longer duration.
And you mentioned the three major cloud providers. Is there a plan to include, say, Alley Cloud or maybe some of the NCPs out there to have a more wide array of clouds you can choose from?
Not at this moment, but if there is a request and if there's an interest, we can definitely look at it.
Earlier, you mentioned that you can back up a lot of VMs. And of course, that kind of gets people thinking more and more about who services those VMs. You have Hyper-V, you have OpenStack, and you have OpenShift. And then you also have VMware, of course, which is probably the largest provider of these VMs. Now, there are a number of people that are looking for alternatives there. How is NetApp Backup and Recovery service enabling that sort of use case?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because many customers these days have different solutions to have their infrastructure hosted. And like you said, VMware is our largest base. Many customers do have other platforms like Microsoft Hyper-V, KVM, and OpenShift. So these are the other common platforms that we see. In the past, we never had a solution like in the Snap Manager or Snap Center. We didn't have a strong solution. We had something for Hyper-V, but it was not a detailed out solution. Now in the NetApp Backup and Recovery, you get a complete 3-to-1 support for all these platforms. And anyone who is interested looking into alternatives, apart from VMware, definitely they can reach out to us. We can help you get started.
So when you're talking about VMware and people moving away from VMware to go to other places, or moving from any virtualization platform to go somewhere else, does NetApp Backup and Recovery Service aid in that migration, or are we just simply there in case you need us for backup?
So we have different tools right now, especially within NetApp. We have Shift, which also helps customers to move, or if they want to transition from VMware to other platforms, they can leverage Shift. So we can definitely guide them. So that's not a problem. We can always guide the customers how they can use different tools to migrate their existing infrastructure to a new one. And on top of it, once they have migrated, now we have stories from the backup side. So you don't have to worry. We can protect you. We can safeguard your estate. And in fact, we are also trying to extend these capabilities to our different product lines as well, like disaster recovery as a service and other mediums, where you can also have seamless DR for your new infrastructure. If you want to migrate from Snap Center, you can use it today. So there's a migrate option in NetApp Backup and Recovery that helps you to migrate from Snap Center to the new NetApp Backup and Recovery. So it's a non-disruptive migration, and it's a single click. You don't have to take the hassle of understanding the estate, the policies, and all that stuff. We clearly understand what is there in Snap Center, and we can nicely bring that data, all the metadata, into the new Backup and Recovery. So when you start your one-click migration, And the next backup will start from the NetApp Backup and Recovery, while your SnapCenter schedules will be paused after doing that. So customers who are using SnapCenter, this is a great chance for you to try NetApp Backup and Recovery for these modern features that we offer today.
So Shift, if you're not familiar with, that's the virtualization, I guess the VM conversion, right? The being able to convert a VM from one platform to another. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So have you ever had a customer ask, can you use Shift on all my NetApp Backup and Recovery service backup? So convert all my backup VMs to another provider. Has that ever been asked? Is that something that's even possible?
That's an interesting question. As of now, we have noticed that most of them are focused on the transition part. We are yet to see how they want to carry forward their backups from the new infrastructure. But yeah, I think I'm also very interested to see because there can be different dimensions to it, right? If they have backups protected in the object store or a tape or any other long-term retention, I think that is still there. So they can use it anytime. But I'm not sure if there is a backward portability of the backups once they move out from the VMware to other platforms. Let us know so we can engage our experts. We can definitely see an option for it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because I would imagine that if you had a VM you converted and you have a backup with the old VM format, that might be challenging to restore it unless you're just restoring certain aspects of the data maybe. But that might be something that needs to be looked at if they were moving and migrating. All right. Anything else you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, I would only say that if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to us on backup service-feedback. And we have a bunch of engineers and experts added to that group. And if they want to know more, we can respond back and have further conversations with that customer.
Yeah, there's definitely a better level of opportunity that you can have. So first thing is like the customers who are assessing VMware and other alternatives, they can definitely walk into our solution and we are ready to help you in the deal. So ng-backup service-feedback, and that's the external one. And any customers or partners can reach out to us directly on that deal. And second thing is if they want to do a POC, they want to have more demos from our side, we can definitely help you with that. We can show how things work with NetApp Backup and Recovery. And like I said, who all can definitely try, especially the SnapCenter customers. Today, we have a limitation. I know many customers might be using different tools to have a long-term retention story. And if they are interested to have that solution in one place, a single tool, single console, single platform, now we have the solution.
All right. So sounds like we got a lot of good information here about NetApp Backup and Recovery Service. And if you're interested in it, of course, it's in all three major clouds. Manohar, again, if we wanted to reach you, how do we do that?
You can either reach out to our team on ng-backup service-feedback@netapp.com, or you can also reach out to our email IDs that we shared at the initial. My email ID is manohar.kulkarni@netapp.com.
All right. And Ebin?
Yeah, you can definitely reach out to the DL, ng backup service feedback at netapp.com. In addition, if you want to reach out to me, you can simply write an email at ebin@netapp.com.
All right, excellent. So again, if you want to reach out to these guys and talk about NetApp Backup and Recovery Service or SnapCenter or anything else, they're there for you. Again, thank you for joining us and talking to us all about the NetApp Backup and Recovery Service.
All right, that music tells me it's time to go. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email to podcast@netapp.com or send us a tweet @netapp. As always, if you'd like to subscribe, find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or via TechONTAPPodcast.com. If you like the show today, leave us a review. On behalf of the entire Tech ONTAP podcast team, I'd like to thank Ebin, Kadavy, and Manohar Kulkarni for joining us today. As always, thanks for listening.
Oh, yeah. Is it just me that's getting off on this?
Oh, yeah.